Welcome to scarying YouTube channel of Brave Souls, to tonight's tale of terror. Sit back, dim the lights, and prepare to feel the chill of fear crawling up your spine. This is the story of Hollow Creek, a place where nightmares walk in the shadows, and not everyone who enters ever leaves. Are you ready to hear the whispers of the dark? Then let us begin. Before going, please subscribe. Hollow Creek was a place that lived in whispers. Rumors passed down from those who knew better than to tread near its borders. It had once been a thriving logging town, nestled deep in the mountains, isolated from the world by towering forests and craggy hills. But in 1954, something happened. In one terrifying night, the entire town went silent. Its people vanished without a trace, and the surrounding villages dared not investigate. Over time, the town was abandoned, overgrown by the forest that seemed eager to reclaim it. The locals believed the town was cursed, haunted by the souls of those who disappeared. They called them the Lost Ones, shadows that wandered the streets of Hollow Creek at night, looking for the living to drag into their ghostly realm. Emma, Matt, and Brian had heard the stories, of course. Everyone in the region had. But they weren't from around here, not really. They were city kids, skeptics who loved chasing urban legends, seeking the thrill of the unknown. So when Brian suggested they visit Hollow Creek to shoot a video for their paranormal channel, Emma and Matt didn't hesitate for long. After all, what harm could an old, abandoned ghost town really pose? They set out just as the sun began to dip behind the mountains, the golden light fading to an ominous gray as they drove deeper into the woods. The road twisted and turned, narrowing with each passing mile until the thick trees formed an oppressive tunnel around them. The forest seemed alive with the sound of rustling leaves and distant creaks. But as they neared Hollow Creek, even those sounds seemed to die away, leaving only the hum of the car engine and the occasional nervous chatter between them. Finally, they arrived at the entrance to the town. A rusted sign swung lazily from a single chain, creaking in the cold breeze. Welcome to Hollow Creek. Population 0. The letters were barely legible, worn away by decades of neglect. The road ahead was cracked and overgrown, the buildings just barely visible through the thick underbrush that had slowly swallowed the town. This place is a wreck, Matt muttered, grabbing his camera from the back seat. Perfect for a ghost hunt. Emma felt a chill crawl up her spine as she stepped out of the car. The air was cold, too cold for early autumn, and it carried with it a strange, metallic scent, like the earth itself was bleeding. She shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around herself. "Let's just get the footage and go," she said. "This place gives me the creeps." Brian, ever the adventurer, led the way with his flashlight, illuminating the broken path ahead of them. "Relax, Em. It's just an old town. Nothing to be afraid of." But the moment they passed a rusted sign, a strange feeling settled over the group, an oppressive weight, as though the very air had thickened. The trees seemed to press in closer, their gnarled branches reaching toward them like skeletal fingers. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying with it faint murmurs that were almost too quiet to hear. The town appeared suddenly, like a graveyard materializing out of the fog. Buildings sagged under the weight of time, their windows shattered, doors hanging crookedly from rusted hinges. Vines snaked up the walls, choking the structures as nature reclaimed its territory. The streets were littered with debris, old, forgotten things that told the story of a town left behind in a single, terrible moment. "This is crazy," Brian whispered, scanning the area with his camera. "It's like the place is frozen in time." They wandered through the deserted streets, their flashlights cutting through the thick darkness that seemed to swallow the town whole. Every step they took felt heavier, as though the ground itself didn't want them there. The silence was unnatural. No birds, no insects, not even the rustle of leaves. It was as if the town existed in its own pocket of the world, disconnected from everything outside its borders. Then, the whispers began. At first, they were so faint, Emma thought she was imagining them, a soft, unintelligible murmur, like the wind moving through the trees. But as they ventured deeper into the heart of the town, the whispers grew louder, more distinct, voices low and urgent, speaking in a language none of them could understand. "Did you hear that?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Matt stopped, turning toward her. "Hear what?" "Sure." Brian held up a hand, listening intently. The whispers swirled around them, coming from every direction. But when they turned to look, the streets were empty. "We need to keep moving," Matt said, though his voice wavered. "Let's just get to the center of town, shoot what we need, and get out of here." They pressed on, their footsteps echoing unnaturally loud in the stillness. The town square opened up before them, dominated by the crumbling remains of a church. Its bell tower leaned precariously to one side, as though it could collapse at any moment. The front doors, heavy and rotted, hung open, revealing the darkened interior. As they approached, the whispers grew louder, rising into a cacophony of angry, desperate voices. Emma's heart pounded in her chest, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Something was wrong here, deeply wrong, and every instinct she had was screaming at her to turn back. But Brian was already moving toward the church. "We need to check this out," he said, his voice barely audible over the rising whispers. Emma and Matt followed reluctantly, stepping through the doorway into the cold, damp interior. The air inside was thick with the smell of mildew and decay, and the floor creaked under their feet. The pews were overturned, the altar crumbling, and the once beautiful stained glass windows were shattered, jagged remnants of their former glory. "Let's go upstairs," Brian suggested, pointing to the staircase that led up to the bell tower. Emma hesitated. "Are you sure?" "I don't think." But before she could finish, a loud creak echoed through the church, followed by a soft rustling sound, like something or someone moving in the shadows. "Did you hear that?" Matt whispered, his eyes wide. The whispers stopped abruptly, leaving a deafening silence in their wake. For a moment, the three of them stood frozen, their breath catching in their throats. Then, without warning, the church bell rang. The sound was distorted, warping as it echoed through the empty town. It reverberated through the walls, shaking the building and sending a shower of dust and debris from the ceiling. But it wasn't just the sound that terrified them. It was what came with it. Out of the shadows, figures began to emerge, pale, twisted shapes, their hollow eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. They moved slowly, their limbs jerking unnaturally as they crept toward the church. The lost ones. Emma's scream died in her throat as the figures multiplied, pouring into the square from every darkened alley and side street. They surrounded the church, their empty eyes fixed on the three intruders. "We have to go," Matt shouted, bolting for the door. They ran, their footsteps echoing in the hollow streets as the lost ones closed in around them. The town twisted and turned, every corner leading them back into the heart of Hollow Creek. The whispers returned, louder and more frantic, their voices blending together into a horrible, dissonant chant. They stumbled into an old house, slamming the door behind them, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. But even inside, they weren't safe. The walls groaned, and the floorboards creaked under an unseen weight. From the shadows, a figure began to rise, its face twisted in agony, its eyes hollow and black as it reached for them with long, bony fingers. And then, everything went dark. And so, Hollow Creek claimed more souls. The lost ones continued to walk its streets, waiting for the next unsuspecting visitor to wander too far into their domain. But perhaps the scariest part of all is that the town is still out there, hidden in the woods, waiting for you. Would you dare to visit? If you enjoyed this tale and want more stories of horror, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your bravest friends. Until next time, beware the shadows, because you never know what's lurking just beyond the light. Good night, and sleep tight if you can.